What's up, everybody, and welcome here to my Premier League predictions for Matchday 32 on this video. As we have all of the 10 games taking place by Friday, Saturday and Sunday this weekend, and we start things first with the first predictions of the weekend between AFC Bournemouth and Manchester United. Big game for both sides. Bournemouth, however, they want to try and push themselves in those top half positions in the Premier League. As for Manchester United, they are really fighting themselves to stay in that top four and be in the top four by the end of the season, because a big win for them, 3-1 win against Aston Villa, puts them above them by 3 points clear from Villa. And Martin Carrick's team have been very decent, and we know how they're playing very good football, and they're playing for the manager. They're playing for the Man United team, playing for the manager, playing for the badge since he took over from Ruben Amorim. And I've seen a massive difference from Manchester United having an ex-legend who's played for Man United and he's done things in the past. But I do play away from home, though, against AFC Bournemouth. Obviously, they have got a good side. We all know that Andari Areola, a top class coach in terms of him managing a team like Bournemouth. Last week, they didn't win against Burnley last week. They did draw 0-0 away from home. Do play at home, though, against Manchester United at the Vitality Stadium. If I've got to put a big prediction in this matchup, I do really think this will come down to a draw, I think. A draw between Bournemouth and Man United, personally. I think that both teams will, both pick up a point. I think both teams will not beat each other in the game. But I do think 1-1 will be reasonable as the score prediction. So the score prediction I'm going for is Bournemouth 1, Manchester United 1 as my official score prediction for Matchday 32. Now my official prediction between Brighton and Liverpool. Big matchup, by the way, for both teams. Liverpool especially, they did draw 1-1 against Tottenham. They could not get into the top four. They couldn't reach up to after dropping points last week in their matchup. Obviously, that was a draw in that match against the team who are struggling in the league, Tottenham Hotspur. Big draw for them. But for Liverpool, it seems a little bit disappointed. They actually dropped points at home as they're in a real race of trying to challenge in that top four race from now until the end of the season. They do play away from home against Brighton at the Amex Stadium on Saturday. I do think that this game will be a very so I won't say an easy game, but it will be a very tough game, though, because Brighton obviously did very well by beating Sunderland by 1-0 from last week. Although they're currently in the bottom half of the table, but on their day, Brighton might pick up something against Liverpool. Obviously, we've seen that with Brighton. They might lose a few games, they might pick up a few wins maybe there and in. And it's still a tough place to go for Liverpool, though, despite them going there as favourites in this matchup against Brighton. But if I've got to put a prediction between Brighton and Liverpool, since Liverpool obviously have got a big chance on trying to chase onto that top four race, I do think that Liverpool will go for the win, I think, against Brighton. So I'm going to go for a 2-0 win for Liverpool as my score prediction at the Amex Stadium on Saturday. Now my score prediction for Fulham and Burnley. Big matchup at Craven Cottage, by the way. Fulham obviously are having their moments. Not really a team that you expect for them to be anywhere challenging for the European positions. Obviously, Fulham always that mid-table team, not a very competitive team, but always there, always in that top 12, 11th position in the league. And I don't see anything about them, pushing forward, because the last few games, Fulham lost to West Ham. Fulham drew 0-0 to Nottingham Forest against the teams who are fighting in the relegation battle. And obviously they beat Spurs in their last game they've won. Actually, they beat Tottenham 2-1 a few weeks back. So I have seen that they are a very good side. We all know that, as a matter of fact. On their day, though, they do play Burnley. They obviously, a team, have drawn 0-0 to Bournemouth from their last matchup at Turf Moor last week. Big draw for them. for Scott Parker's side. Obviously, they're only like 8 points behind from safety, but I don't think mathematically they're going to be anywhere closer to survive. I think with Scott Parker's team, they've picked up a couple of draws maybe, and they've done that recently. But I don't expect them to go to Fulham and win. I think Fulham had a little bit of a drought a little bit recently, losing to West Ham, drawing 0-0 to Nottingham Forest. They could have lost that game to Forest, they could have done. But I think that this time around, I think Fulham will go for the 3 points, I think. So I'm going to go for Fulham 1, Burnley 0 as my score prediction for Saturday. 1-0 to Fulham at Craven Cottage. Now we move on to our next game here. We have here is Everton, and they take on against Chelsea. 5:30 kickoff on Saturday. Obviously, Everton did lose 2-0 to Arsenal. Obviously, Max Dowman, the young 16-year-old, scored against Everton in that matchup from last weekend. And also, Gokres also scored for Arsenal to make Everton to be defeated in that game from the Emirates from last week. They do play at home, though, to Chelsea. Not in good form recently. They got crushed out of the UEFA Champions League last night, and they lost 8-2 on aggregate to PSG. And I don't really see Chelsea fighting much in terms of what they've done recently. They lost 1-0 in their last league matchup to Newcastle at home last week. They do play Everton here away from home, and plus Everton did lose last week against a team who are top of the league, Arsenal. And this might be a chance here for Everton to pick up something in this game. If I've got to put a score prediction between Everton and Chelsea, I do think that Everton will score in the game, but I do think Chelsea will pick up a win against Everton. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 win. Despite how bad form that Chelsea have had so far, I do think they're going to pick up something here over Everton. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 win as my score prediction for Chelsea over Everton. Now we move on now to my next score predictions. It's going to be Leeds United, 8 o'clock kickoff on Saturday. They take on against Brentford. Big matchup for Leeds. We know that is a very, very big task, I think, for the 4 teams who are fighting for safety. Leeds, Spurs, Forest and West Ham. Obviously, Leeds are a little bit adrift away a little bit from where Forest are and West Ham are, and also Spurs are only 2 points off from Spurs and 3 points off of West Ham and Forest. They do play at home, though, might be an advantage for Leeds United, because I do think with Brentford, they obviously did very well. They did well to lead by 2-0 against Wolves from their last matchup in the Premier League, but they gave away 2 goals. And they drew 2-2 to Wolves in their last league game. Brentford obviously have been drawing games mostly in the last few weeks, against Bournemouth especially as well, 0-0. And also against Burnley, obviously against the team from before that, against Wolves, sorry, not Burnley, but Wolves. They drew to Bournemouth and also Wolves in their last 2 games. They obviously want to have their aims now, obviously, to challenge in those European positions. They're currently sitting in 7th position in the league, though. They are gaining 2 points from the last 2 games, and they are in that Europa Conference League position at the moment in the Premier League. But they do play Leeds, though. Did draw 0-0 to Palace. They've drawn a few games recently. Ruben Loftus-Cheek almost scored a penalty against Palace on Sunday, but it was actually missed and went wide. That penalty could have been 1-0 Leeds, but that went wide, and that was a missed chance from Loftus-Cheek to give Leeds the 3 points. But I do think with Leeds, I see them scoring, and I can see them taking another point in this game. I don't think Leeds will go for the win, I don't think, Ellen Road. But I do think that they have got a little bit of a momentum, I think, in this game, as they're the home team. But Brentford, however, bear it in mind, they're also a team do end up picking up draws recently as well, like what Leeds have done as well. So if I've got a per prediction between Leeds and Brentford, I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. I think Ruben Loftus-Cheek will score for Leeds, and I think that Brentford will also get a goal in their end as well. I do think that they're going to get themselves that goal for Brentford. Maybe I can say that I can see perhaps maybe a defender might score a corner. I think that Ethan Pinnock for Brentford, I've got a feeling he might score a header against Leeds United to get themselves that level goal to put themselves a draw by the end of the matchup. So if I got to put a prediction in this game, I do think Loftus-Cheek will score, and I think Ethan Pinnock will score for Brentford. So I'm going to go for a draw, 1-1 as my score prediction at this game between Leeds and Brentford. Right, now we move on now to Sunday's games. We do have at 12 o'clock kickoff on Sunday, the North East Derby. It's Newcastle United, and they take on against Sunderland. Both teams, for the first time in 10 years now, these two teams are playing the exact same league as each other. On the last meeting way back in December, Sunderland defeated Newcastle by 1-0 by an own goal by David Waldemade, scored an own goal for Newcastle, giving away a goal for Sunderland to win that game in their last meeting in the first half of the Premiership season in December. But now Newcastle are playing at home at St James's Park Stadium. Obviously a big win against Chelsea from their last matchup in the Premier League. They do play Barcelona away from home tonight at the Camp Nou. I do think that Newcastle end up losing that game personally. I don't think that Barcelona will be the ones to be very bad in that game. I don't think Barcelona will end up losing that matchup because they're at home now. They are at the Camp Nou. And I do think, obviously, Barcelona will definitely win tonight against Newcastle. But now, after that Barcelona game for tonight, they go and play Sunderland on the weekend. If I've got to put a score prediction between Newcastle and Sunderland, I'm going to go for a goalless draw, I think, because I think both sides will definitely want to pick up the 3 points because there's a rivalry between Sunderland and Newcastle. So I'm going to go for a draw. I'm going to go 0-0 as my score prediction between Newcastle and Sunderland on Sunday. Now the big game for West Ham United. They've got a big matchup here to take on Aston Villa because we know that for Villa, chance for them to try and challenge in that top 4 position, qualifying for the top 4 by the end of the season. But I think Villa have been really poor recently, leaking goals, giving away goals, losing a few matches recently, even though Villa were in perfect form during the start of the season. But even now, the last few games, they've dropped in points and losing to Manchester United 3-1. And I've seen that Villa have not been themselves as much in the league as much. I think the Europa League's taken over their aims, of course. Their control is now focused on themselves in that Europa League competition. I've seen them drifting off from the league and focus themselves on that Europa League trophy, what Unai Emery does best by winning the Europa League. Every club he's been at, except from Arsenal, he has never won it then, but for other teams, he's won the Europa League everywhere he's been. So I do think that's their priority, obviously, for Aston Villa is the Europa League. But as for West Ham United, they did very well last week from that Mavropanos saved West Ham, or even saved us as well, especially against Man City, to draw 1-1 in that matchup, because I actually thought that when they drawn that game, it really helped us, of course, to keep ourselves 9 points clear at the top of the Premiership now. And there's likely now we're definitely going to win the league this season. Still few games left to go of the season to go, but that draw was a massive and promising for us to now believe in ourselves we can go and win the league this season. 9-point gap is massive, and West Ham delivered that nicely from their game from last week. But we got to bear it in mind as well, West Ham United are currently in the relegation zone. Did very well by drawing to Man City. They beat Fulham away from home 1-0. They've got lots to think about in this matchup against Aston Villa. Villa have got the Europa League to think about, realistically. That's what Unai Emery's focused on now, is the Europa League and get themselves to win the whole thing. For West Ham, however, this game here means the most compared to Villa at the moment, because Villa's got their Europa League priorities as well, not the Champions League priorities, but to get themselves win that Europa League competition to get into the Champions League. That's what Unai Emery's pretty much focused on at the moment. But as for West Ham, I've seen them really working hard every week, really giving themselves their all in most of the games, really fighting, battling. I've seen Forest and West Ham battling in the relegation battle, and I wouldn't be surprised if they actually pick up something from this matchup against Aston Villa. So if I got to put a score prediction between Villa and West Ham, since West Ham have to win this game, I'm going to go for a win for West Ham away from home. I think that Villa will end up losing that game at home, I think. And I think West Ham will pick up the 3 points massively. Big 3 points I'm going for on the weekend. So I'm going to go for a 1-0 win for West Ham United. They are going to defeat Aston Villa on Sunday away from home. And the last matchup of this match day of the Premier League, it's Tottenham Hotspur, and they take on against Nottingham Forest. Both teams are in a relegation fight, dogfight. It is a must-win game because whoever loses matchup, I think, between Spurs and Forest, I reckon that team will be relegated by the end of the season. It won't look good if Spurs lose or even if Forest lose as well, because I think these two teams, I think out of the 4, Leeds, West Ham, Spurs and Forest, I think between these two teams are a little bit sketchy at the moment in terms of what they've been recently. I know that Spurs got a draw over Anfield from last week by a goal from Richarlison. I know that Forest draw 0-0 to Fulham and drawn against Man City as well. And they're fighting as well in the Premier League. They're not winning games, but they're picking up a point every single game they've been, Nottingham Forest. And both teams are really at the same situation on who will go on and win this game. I think Spurs, obviously, they're in big trouble. They haven't won a game at home, only 2 home games this season. Only 2 home matches they've won all season. Apart from that, they have not won any games at home all season, apart from the 2 they've only won this season. But they play against Nottingham Forest, who are currently obviously in the same predicament as Tottenham. Their away form is not as bad, I don't think, for Nottingham Forest. And also, they've done well by, famously in the Europa League, knocked out Fenerbahce away from home 3-0. Fenerbahce is a big club, in Turkey. I know Fenerbahce is a lot different compared to Tottenham are, but their away form's a lot better as well. And you've got to understand that Tottenham's home form's very poor this season. But if Spurs get relegated this season, it feels very impossible they're going to go down, due to the fact that Spurs have got that financial muscle in terms of established Big Six club in the Premier League. And I do think that Spurs will probably find a way to survive this season. So I'm still sticking to that moral. I think they're going to do it still, Tottenham. But I won't say that Spurs will go for the winner. I don't think it's Nottingham Forest though. But I do think this game will be goals in this matchup. But I think it'll go down to a draw, I think, between Tottenham and Forest. So my score prediction, since I feel that Spurs should really on paper survive this season, really, because they've been in the league for a long time and they're established Big Six club. I do think they're going to go for a draw against Forest. I don't think they'll win the game because, Spurs can't win it at home at all this season. Only 2 home games this season, they won all season. So I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw as my score prediction over Nottingham Forest. I think Forest will go at the end of this match day in the relegation zone, while West Ham pick up a big win over Aston Villa, and they'll drag Forest in the relegation zone and drag Spurs into 17th position. And that'll be my official predictions of the whole of Matchday 31. Now we move on to the special prediction as well. It's the Carabao Cup final. I want to add this in this video as well, between Arsenal and Manchester City. These two teams are challenging each other in this top title race this season, because these two teams are mostly at war against each other. But Arsenal have got a better advantage compared to Man City in the league, because we're 9 points clear at the top of the Premier League. And we are playing in every single competition. We went through last night against Bayern Leverkusen. We're in the quarterfinals of the Champions League. We're in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. We're in the finals, obviously, on Sunday in the EFL League Cup. And also, we are top of the Premier League. All those 4 competitions we are fighting for now. And I do think in this game, with Man City also showing a lot of quality as well, they definitely want to try and win the League Cup as well. And plus, Man City are known to win the League Cup mostly recent years compared to Arsenal. We haven't won the League Cup since 1993. Long time ago. Man City have won the League Cup a few times, and they're probably favourites compared to us, due to the fact that they've experienced themselves winning it before under Pep Guardiola. And we haven't won the League Cup since 1993. Long time ago. But since it's a day out, and since it's actually at Wembley Stadium, and since we want to win a trophy this season, I think it's the best way to go win this game against Man City. And I do think we'll probably end up winning this game against Man City. I think it'll go. I think it'll be a draw. I think it'll be 0-0 going into full time, and I think we'll go to extra time, and it will be like 0-0 in that extra time period. But I do think on penalties, Arsenal might have enough on penalties to go and win the League Cup for the first time since 1993. So I'm going to go for an Arsenal win on penalties to win the EFL Cup on Sunday. And that is all for my Premier League predictions for Matchday 31 and also my League Cup final predictions also for the weekend. And that's all we have time for. If you like this video, go and give me a follow. And if you want to subscribe, go and subscribe as well. That's all for the video here on this predictions. And we'll see you on the next one after the international break. Peace out.